I definitely won't be hiring any babysitters anytime soon. Caution! The following video is an in-depth review of the movie I'm currently reviewing, which means that there will be massive spoilers in the review. If you haven't seen this movie yet, then please feel free to watch this movie first before watching this video. However, if you have already seen this movie, or you just want to know my thoughts on this movie, then keep watching. I had just recently started subscribing to Netflix. At first, I didn't want to subscribe to Netflix because I was so used to watching various movies and TV shows on regular cable. But then it started getting to the point where I was having trouble trying to catch up on my favorite TV shows and movies. And I just had to find a way to binge watch on my favorite TV shows and movies without missing out on the story plots. Enter Netflix, and Hulu, and Vudu, and many other streaming services that just happened to show up on my Roku, and I was able to catch up on my favorite TV shows and movies in no time. It was then that I discovered that Netflix had created their own original content, and one of the first movies that I saw that was created by Netflix was none other than The Babysitter. Now, The Babysitter may seem like an odd movie to watch for my first film for Netflix, but it was a pretty interesting film that introduced me to some of the crazy material that Netflix is willing to put on its service. But before I go into what I liked and hated about this film, I would like to give out a brief summary of this film. The movie starts off with a 12-year-old boy named Cole Johnson, who is often bullied at school and is afraid of everything. However, despite Cole's life being miserable, there was one person that really made him feel better, and that was his babysitter, B. Cole and B were good friends, and they would spend so much time together. One day, Cole's parents were going to a hotel for a getaway trip, and they left B in charge of Cole while they were gone. At first, things seemed alright between Cole and B as they played games with each other. But once Cole went to bed, he started hearing B and her friends having a party downstairs. So Cole goes downstairs to see what B and her friends were doing, and it turned out that B and her friends were performing a human sacrifice. It was then that Cole realized that B and her friends were a part of a cult where they sacrifice human beings in order to have their wishes come true, and Cole is the next victim on the list. So Cole spends most of the film trying to escape from B and her friends before they kill him for the sacrifice. Now, I will admit that when I first heard about this movie, I thought that I wasn't going to like this film because the premise sounded so ridiculous. But once I started watching this movie, I realized just how entertaining and hilarious this movie really was. I have seen many horror comedies during my lifetime, with Tim Burton's Beetlejuice being one of my all-time favorites, but I had never seen a horror comedy that focused on twisting various tropes from the horror movie genre and actually making it to an interesting movie. What I liked a lot about this movie is the fact that all of the characters are aware of the situations that they are in and poke fun at it. Like, for example, there was a scene where Cole was tied up in the chair by B and her friends, and he manages to sneak a knife on himself. He then proceeds to cut up the rope while distracting B and her friends. But then Allison, the cheerleader of the group, notices that Cole is cutting through the ropes because a mirror is behind him and everyone can see what Cole is doing through the mirror. This scene was hilarious to me because in most horror movies, or even action movies, the protagonist would be caught up in a trap that the villain set up. The villain would then start gloating about their plans towards the trapped protagonist, but then the villain fails to notice that the protagonist is secretly freeing themselves from the trap, and then their plans are ruined because they overlook that one detail. This is like the first horror comedy that I have seen where the villains are aware of the situation and actually take down Cole before he got too far. I also love the way that the movie twisted the usual group of teenagers are getting attacked by the monster trope. In this movie, you have a group of teenagers that would fit in well with any horror movie. First you got Max, who is the jock of the group, then you got Allison, who is the cheerleader of the group, then you have Sonia, the Asian goth girl, then you have John, the wisecracking black guy, and then finally you have B herself, the strong and gorgeous lead girl. All of these characters are the types that you would normally see in any horror movie starring teenagers. However, there is a twist to these characters. Instead of these teenage characters being the good guys, they are the bad guys, and the protagonist of this movie is a young 12-year-old boy who has to escape from them. And here's another twist on the horror genre. You know how in horror movies the monster tends to spend most of the movie killing off the protagonist one by one until there's only one person left? Well, in this movie, it's done in reverse, as it's the 12-year-old protagonist who is the one killing off the evil teenagers, although a bit accidentally most of the time. I just love the fact that none of the good guys in this film ever get killed off like in most horror movies, as it offers something refreshing for the horror genre. Now that I talked about how this movie managed to turn the horror genre on its head, I would like to talk about the characters themselves. The first character that I wanted to talk about is Cole himself. Cole was a very interesting character as he had the most natural character development in the movie. I know that sounds weird coming from a movie like this, but there's actually some truth to this. Cole started out the movie as being afraid of everything, and he was constantly being bullied by the other kids at school. But the moment that he finds out that Bee and her friends are trying to kill him, and he had to do everything in his power to survive, Cole becomes a much braver, more fearless character as the film progresses. The character progression felt natural because, of course, Cole was going to be terrified of a bunch of teenagers trying to murder him. But once he starts becoming more confident in his wits and his abilities, he starts becoming a more mature person by the end of the film, having braved through one of the worst situations to ever happen to anyone, nearly being murdered by a bunch of psychotic teenagers. The next character that I wanted to talk about is Bee herself. Bee was one of the most interesting characters in the entire film. She started off the film being Cole's babysitter, but she was no ordinary babysitter. Bee was more like a cool big sis towards Cole, and she always did everything she could to protect Cole from the bullies at school. She also had a really good relationship with Cole as they treated each other like the best of friends, and I really enjoyed that close relationship that Bee and Cole shared. Now, I noticed how I said Bee started off that way. Once the twist is revealed that Bee is actually a sadistic killer who is trying to kill innocent people in order to take their blood and use it for a demonic ritual, everything that we thought that we knew about Bee's character is suddenly turned on its head. I like the fact that Bee is surprisingly a complex character. She doesn't seem like a straight-up villain since she still cares about Cole, and she wasn't in much of a hurry to kill him. But on the other hand, she still murdered many innocent people just so she could make her wish come true, and she still wanted to kill Cole to complete the ritual. It's obvious that Bee does cherish her friendship with Cole, but she is so set on completing the ritual and having her wish come true that she is willing to place her feelings for Cole beneath her and still try to kill him. Samara Weaving did a fantastic job of portraying Bee, as Bee was shown as being a fun-loving babysitter when we are first introduced to her. But the moment that she shows her true colors, Samara Weaving was able to make Bee into a truly menacing character who would stop at nothing to kill Cole. And now I would like to talk a bit about Bee's so-called friends, Max, Sonia, Allison, and John. There's honestly not much to say about any of these characters since they were just there to be Bee's backup, but I have to say that they were the most entertaining part of the film. As I mentioned before, Bee and her crew represented the stereotypical teen clique that you see in many horror movies. And like many horror movies, each team member would get killed off by the monster of the story until there's only one person left in the film. However, in this case, the teenagers are actually the bad guys, and it's the protagonist who is killing them off, not a monster. I think that the actors portraying Bee's friends were having so much fun with their roles, and it really shows in their acting. And even though I really like the characters Sonia, John, and Allison, probably my most favorite character among Bee's group of friends was none other than Max himself. Max is shown as being the big dumb jock who is the muscle of the group, and he appears to be the friendliest of the group. But it turns out that he is the craziest member of the group, and he is the most eager to kill Cole. Also, it's revealed that the reason why he went along with Bee's plan to kill off innocent people and use their blood for a ritual isn't because he had a wish that he wanted to come true, but it's because he enjoyed killing people, and he actually had no wish to speak of. I found Max to be a fun character because he's the only one of Bee's friends who doesn't have any goals for himself. He's just a sadistic teenager who uses his brute force to kill anyone he wants, while having a kooky attitude to go along with it. I don't know, I just always love axe-crazy characters who kill people left and right, while acting crazy doing the whole thing. And yes, I sound like a sadist saying all this. Robbie Amell, you know the cousin Stephen Amell who plays Arrow? Or maybe you know him better as Firestorm from the Flash TV series. Anyway, Robbie Amell's performance was so hilarious and entertaining, and he was really into the role of Max as I seriously did buy Max's axe-crazy yet friendly personality. So now that I talked a bit about Max, I would like to talk about the other members of Bee's group, Sonia, John, and Allison. Even though they didn't do much in the film, each of their personalities were pretty entertaining to watch. I like the fact that Sonia was the goth chick who was quieter than the other members, but just as deadly. I especially found the scene where she was hunting Cole in the basement to be the creepiest part of the movie since she acted so sinister during that scene. Another character that I wanted to talk about is John. There's not much to say about John since he is killed off early in the film, but I must admit that I did find his character to be hilarious. I love the fact that he is constantly cracking jokes about the various horror tropes shown in the movie, as it shows that this movie is very aware of that it's a parody of the horror film genre. And last but not least, I would like to talk about Allison, the cheerleader of the group. Allison is shown as being very shallow as she mostly cares about her looks. This gets taken up to 11 where she is shot in the chest, and she is more concerned about the state of her breasts rather than the fact that she was shot. I found Allison to be a very interesting character because while she spent most of the film being shallow, she seems to have a lot of hidden depths to her character. Like for example, her greatest wish is to become a journalist, which may seem odd for her character. I'm not that familiar with Bella Thorne's acting career. Apparently she was well known for starring in the Disney Channel series Shake It Up, but since I've never seen Shake It Up, I honestly don't know much about her. But I did enjoy Bella Thorne's portrayal of Allison, as she makes Allison seem clueless, but also deadly when she needs to be. Another aspect of the film that I really liked was the fact that there was barely any supernatural elements in the story. Sure, the movie centers around a bunch of teenagers discovering an ancient demonic book and trying to use said book to have their wishes come true, but the bulk of the movie is basically about a bunch of psychotic teenagers trying to kill a young boy without using any kind of powers. Usually in many horror movies, I tend to see the protagonist fighting a supernatural entity, so it was quite refreshing and unique to see a horror movie where the supernatural elements don't come into play. Now that I talked about what I liked about this movie, I would like to talk about some of the issues that I have with this film. For one thing, I felt that we didn't really know anything about Bea or her friends. The movie just kind of introduced them all as the antagonists of the story with no backstories for any of them. I would like to know just how Bea and her friends even knew about a demonic book existing. I mean, those things are hard to find, right? Did someone tell them about a demonic book that could grant their wishes? Or is Bea some kind of supernatural entity herself? Bea has mentioned to Cole that she has been doing this ritual for years. So does that mean that their wishes came true at some point and that they just wanted more wishes? The movie never really explained who these characters are and has often left me feeling a bit confused about the motives of the antagonists. Also, the movie points out that Bea and her friends are doing these rituals because they wanted their wishes to come true. So exactly what are Bea and her friends' wishes? It was briefly explained that Bea's wishes to become stronger, Allison wanted to become a journalist, and Max is just doing all this because he loves to kill people, so he didn't really have a wish to speak of. We don't really know what Sonia and John's wishes were. And now I would like to talk a bit about Cole's girlfriend, Melanie. There's really not much to her character other than she started out being Cole's best friend, and then they subtly kissed each other towards the end of the film, and now they are boyfriend and girlfriend. This is yet another movie where the protagonist's love interest is just there because the protagonist needed a love interest. I wish that the movie did a little more with Melanie's character than just have her be Cole's love interest. She could have helped Cole throughout the whole ordeal, and even could have fought alongside him. Anything to have her do more in the movie. Now, the rating for The Babysitter is an odd one because it's not rated like any other normal film. Since this is a Netflix movie, the rating is actually TVMA, which means that the film contains mature content. This film does have a lot of mature moments, such as some graphic sexual dialogue, and the gory violence can be a bit over the top at times, especially when characters are sprayed with buckets full of blood. However, I was quite impressed that the film never went too overboard with the sexual content, and the gory violence shown in this film are so over the top that it would be very difficult to take any of these scenes seriously. Overall, I give The Babysitter a score of an 8.3 out of 10. Even though I wish that they had developed Bea and her friends a bit more, I honestly had a fun time with this film. This film was a great example of how to turn horror movie tropes on its head and turn it into an entertaining and unique film. All of the actors and actresses have brought so much energy to the roles, and it made the movie so much fun to watch. I just hope that Netflix makes a sequel to The Babysitter because there's just so much more stories to tell with these characters. Make it happen, Netflix. Hope you enjoyed my review of The Babysitter. Psst. Hey you. Have you been enjoying the Reviews 2.0 videos? Want to get an added bonus for viewing these videos? Like getting early access to these videos before they are released on YouTube? Or being able to request what movies and TV shows I should review next? Then please feel free to support these videos through my Patreon account. Check out all of the tier titles on my account and choose which tier title you want to be known as. You could become a new member on the block, an early bird, be a part of the future Bunch team, a backstage passenger, an animation superstar, and last but not least, the Honorary Supreme. So show off your tier title name to the world once you support the Reviews 2.0 videos through Patreon. Hey guys, like this video? Then please feel free to hit that like button. And also, hit that subscribe button for more content about video games, movies, and TV shows from this channel. And now, let's roll the credits, please.